But I think that in any kind of project, it doesn't matter if we speak about media or intercultural learning, we can always be in nature. I think it's very good if we take the people out of the hotels and working rooms and take them outside, because it's, I think, builds the connection and people understand that there is some nature, like environment around them. Another thing is that always in the projects we can include like working with different materials, which are natural materials. We will later mention that, for example, during many projects, we do team building activities, we do creative activities. And that's, again, I don't speak about projects which are environment, but we can use the soil. We can use, for example, when we were in Georgia, people could use sand. People can collect natural materials, which is very good because, let's say, we take something from the environment, but we give it back, and there is no, let's say, waste at the end, because while we use, for example, other materials which we need to buy, after they go to waste. But when I speak about waste, we can also use waste. And we can, for example, do a lot of workshops when we give people something what we collected before, and they can, again, like use it to be creative and create something like new.
And I also wanted to mention, if somebody questions why waste is included in this, because I think waste has become a big part of our environment. That's why waste kind of needs to be already part of either workshops or awareness building. So maybe some habits might change gradually. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, definitely, because we also produce a waste. So it's also good to think maybe how we can even reuse it during the activity itself. And of course, that if you do youth work, we have a lot of activities when we use nature like a metaphor, like an example. Like, for example, here is an activity with tree, with the roots, and people reflect on their like values or what makes them rooted. We are using the metaphors of flowers, what makes you bloom. So there is a lot of, I think, also nature symbolic when we speak about like working with this. So that was just like a teaser, what we will talk now. And how I say, we divided the presentation in the sharing in two parts. First is the activities, and after the project elements. So I will talk about the project elements. And I think it's also maybe some inspiration on the question which is always included in the European forms, how you will make project more environmental, how you will make it more sustainable. So let's get some ideas. I want to start from the beginning, that even before we meet somewhere, for example, in our project Nature the Youth Work, we met in Georgia. And we met after in Czech Republic. We always do preparatory online activities with participants. We have a meetings with partners. And here, I would just like also point out this digital carbon footprint. Honestly, for me, was sometimes a bit shocking how much carbon footprint I produce digitally. You can find like different links when you can count it. And of course, I know that we cannot take a step back and send letters because it's like, I think, even impossible. But I think it's also like a bit being aware that also there is a digital carbon footprint, that by emailing, even using now ChatGPT and other tools, we still need the electricity. The electricity needs to be produced something. So it's also just to think that all our activities have some impact on environment. And of course, like this online webinar as well. We are connecting online and we are like using like Zoom application. So yeah, there is some carbon footprint for sure. And okay, when we go to the physical activities, it's always the question of venue. And I know that especially in the European Union countries, some of the venues has already kind of like eco certification. It means that they are like a venues which are, for example, built like through passive architecture, or which are like supporting different, like, you know, like architectural elements. For example, they use like the land for isolation. or they use the rainwater for splashing the toilets. And I think it's also the question that if you have the possibility, of course, it's always nice to choose a venue which is already, let's say, creating a place where environmental projects are, let's say, much more easy to be done. Here is a picture from venue in Czech Republic. It's called Sluňákov. It's like a little bit of sun, let's say, venue. And they are like an environmental and ecological center. And all the building itself and how they are organized, they are trying to be already sustainable and environmentally friendly, which is very important. Because like, yeah, when they also offer you like many different places to like distribute your waste. When they cook, they also pay attention to what they are cooking. The building itself is like also using some principles. So I think it's good also to look for venue. But I know that it's not very simple because not everywhere we have access to such a venues. So what also we can consider and what we can use when we think like about environment and sustainability. The another thing, which I think it's all in all the project, is like what the meals. And here I think it's, of course, if it's possible, it's always very good go to local. So it means that if I have some break for the participants, it's good to offer some local products. Even if that is expensive, like, I didn't want to say like maybe it even a bit more expensive than going to supermarket and buy apples from Spain. Nothing against them, but still like yeah, go to local. But also is the question like about different diets. You might notice that in the Erasmus Plus youth field, especially, you have now projects which, for example, go completely vegetarians or vegan, and they support the choices. And I think it's nice to discuss this with the partners, offer it to the participants. But of course, that the awareness, for example, about vegetarian and vegan food is not everywhere the same. And I experience myself like a facilitator that not every venue is prepared for it. And we still had a sometimes conversation if chicken is a meat, or if somebody eat fish, or the vegetarians basically just ate a lot of cheese. So it's not, I'm not again saying it's also depends on the surroundings, but I think it's good to also point out. And another thing is the transport. Now we know that in the Erasmus it's so-called green travel. It means that if the participant use like train, buses, carpooling, there is also higher budget. And I think it's also the way, let's say, how to be more environmentally friendly. But in the reality, for example, when I work in the Western Balkan, I think people would like to travel by train, but honestly, there is sometimes no trains. So again, I think it's good to know the environment when you do the projects and offer something what really works in the environment. I think what we can really do is when it comes to the materials, like when we think what we really need for the project, what I am really like, try to always think is what we already have, what we can like reuse again, and to really, let's say, don't buy new things. Like not, I think that even now, not everyone like can need a new, let's say, block for writing. For example, in the project in Georgia, Marta created blocks from recycled materials. It means like from old cartoons, and it was really nice and people like it. Also, like when we do projects, we really try to, let's say, how to say, think about the consumption. So don't buy some materials which we maybe simply will not need, or like, yeah, just to find a way how we can reduce their using. So like, yeah, so if you have a flip chart, it has a two sides, for example. I know that it maybe sounds very basic, but what I noticed, like during different like Erasmus activities, even these basic things sometimes are not being like realized. We talk a lot about consumption, but yeah, we just use the things. After when you leave the working room, you don't switch the light. So I think it's also the small things which matters. And of course, like recycling on the venue if possible. So I think that if we have to think about how to make the Erasmus Plus projects more greener, and we look for some inspiration. You can think about the meals, the transport, the materials which we use, and how we what we do with our waste. Also, I think one thing, what we are now supporting the participants is that when they are coming for our activities, we recommend them to take them their water bottle, because if there is a drinkable water, you don't need to after buy plastic bottles, cutlery set. And some people also, if they have the opportunity, they can bring their own notebook and just continue the notes from other projects. Marta, do you have some another travel essential when you travel for projects? Is there something? What do you think?
Generally, I think we should pack minimalistically. Like, if you imagine you will spend a week somewhere, do you really need 3 sets of shoes and I don't know, a lot of, I don't know, clothes to change? I don't know. So, and I remember our Bulgarian partners, they provide actually washing machine at their venues, so people can actually travel light, and if they need, they can wash their clothes. So like, why not be minimalistic in that way? So it's even easier for you. You have less to carry in a way, right?
Honestly, I'm not very minimalist myself, but I'm trying to be. I need to admit. But I think it's a good tip. And it's also like after, your luggage is lighter, how Marta say, and when you buy the plane ticket, you just can go with light luggage, which is also good also for the price of the ticket and all together. So I think that's also another thing when we are let's say, reflecting how to make the projects greener. And it's always to bring something what will, let's say, allowed us to don't buy new things. So water bottle, I think it's now maybe basic thing to have. And also what we are doing in the projects itself and what we are after also mentioning in the application is that in every project when the people meet or even in the already in preparatory phase, what we try to do is we always open the debate about these elements. And how I say, it's not about just the projects which are tackling environmental and ecological issues, because in all the projects, you are always establishing some guiding principles, or how we will work together, how we, let's say, the rules of the behavior. And I think it's nice, part of this guiding principle, also to think about the environment around us. So now, it doesn't matter what topic I'm tackling about the project, we always just talk about that we also should be, let's say, nice to the materials which we have, we don't use them, to don't misuse them. Also that if we produce some waste and there is possible to recycle, so we recycle. Now it of course depends on what the venue, what are the possibilities. If, for example, there are not these recycling bins, but you know that in the city it's possible to recycle, you can just kind of self-propose them and create them in the working venue, which is also very simple rule. If we don't have the water bottles, we can just also, let's say, give the participants cups, which we do, but we also try that people put the names of the cups and they just use them through the times, and they are responsible for washing them. We try to now use let's say, for example, the cups which are from the hard plastic, which we can use for more activities, or even sometimes I saw projects when you have just ordinary cup. It really, again, depends on the possibilities of the venues. We already a little bit mentioned the food. And in the projects, the food works differently. I mean, how the meals are served. But we also it maybe sounds very simple, but again, food should not be wasted. We should switch off the lights, I already say. And after also Marta add here that even during the project itself, for example, we can offer some additional activities to participants that they can organize, maybe some clothes swap, or if they brought something, they can just get something new. For example, they can also make book swap. I recently saw that during one training course, they encourage participants to bring with them one book. And during the training, the participants should kind of like just exchange them. So I think these are all the rules which we can maybe have on mind when we try to make the projects greener, starting from the venue, the meals, transport, materials, and this kind of simply rules. And I think that sometimes people can, let's say, try it during these 5, 6, 7 days, and maybe it will bring them some inspiration to their daily life. Because it's, I think, easy sometimes to start when you are somewhere else. And now we will go to this, let's say, activities. We already a little bit opened the topic that even when we have a project which is not talking about environmental sustainability issue, we can still use the nature. Go to the nature, use nature materials, use nature like a metaphor, and there is much more. So Marta, I will now pass a little bit the word, and I will always like also add some of my experience. So we are starting with getting to know each other. What is your favorite getting to know each other activity?
Well, I really enjoyed the eco bingo that you actually did. So everyone knows this game. It's a very common game to play during international projects, the human bingo, where you find a person in the group that has certain quality or actually is doing something. So why not add questions, for example, about, I don't know, a person who likes gardening, so like then they can discuss that. So that's something connected to nature, you know, that or like somebody that does creative upcycling, so basically working with waste. So why not? Again,
yeah, you can also ask like somebody would travel green, for example, who use like train buses to come to the venue. So yeah, this bingo has a many different variations.
Yes. Also about using nature quotes or images to portray how participants feel or how they that would represent themselves. I've seen this also in training courses, your training courses, where you use the images and then people pick one that reflects their mood or how they feel about life at the moment. So why not use the like nature pictures, like plants, animals, anything, or inspiring quotes. Maybe it creates something else, you know, like it creates. And also, I thought of another one that we used actually in Georgia, that where people were drawing trees and then they were interpreting the drawing in pairs. And there was additionally given like interpretations what they mean, but also people could try to interpret it themselves. And it's always nice to learn something new about yourself, especially when somebody else tries to understand what you are like, because I don't know, the tree is a very common thing to use to basically portray personal values or how person sees the world. Like I noticed that from nature-based learning or methods, the tree is very common to be used. So so these are just few examples that we also used in our activities in Georgia and Czech Republic. And my suggestion in general is like you don't have to take it like fully, but maybe you get inspired by some activity and you incorporate in your activities. And so the next would be after getting to know each other, team building. And here it's a very, how do you say, very wide aspect. So you can build teams in different ways. I noticed that in many projects you have treasure hunt or city hunt. So you are in a group and you have to complete certain tasks following either a map or you have to find a certain place and then there is a task. So why not add something related to environment to the tasks, like identify 3 species of trees, for example. So find the name, like make a photo, and then maybe add the extra task, like what this tree symbolizes in your country, because I think trees are very, how you call it, mythological objects, I would say. So like I am originally from Latvia, and for example, if we would find an oak somewhere, I would know that it symbolizes strength and manliness in my country. So, and probably in Czech Republic is similar things, right? So yeah, so yeah, that's my suggestion. Like that's trees. It could be also identify if you have, for example, I don't know, like sorting trash facilities in the area. Why not? Or how many parks you counted while you were treasure hunting the venue, basically. Also, then another very common activity for team building is marshmallow challenge. That's where you have pasta, right? And a few other marshmallows and some other items, and you have to create a tower. But why not use waste materials instead? And maybe not build a tower, but something more practical, maybe a bird feeder. So you could give each team a specific set of waste materials. I don't know, like egg cartons, because we had a participant from Macedonia who made a bird feeder actually from egg cartons. So why not egg cartons and then a few more items and see what people come up with. Maybe at first it feels a bit limiting because there's just this material, but somehow it's always amazing how the creativity just bursts out. Like people come up with the most amazing ideas, you know. Yeah, then there is walking or hiking with a map, basically being in nature as part of team building. Like I know you mentioned, Ilona, that you had experience with hiking with a map, you know, on some training course.
Yeah, we got lost, but it was a great team building.
You found a solution, right? So
Yeah.
it kind of encouraged the team spirit. And yeah, also why not doing something useful as well during project, like planting trees or vegetables, or actually visiting a community garden and planting something that will grow. Actually, that also adds something to this team experience. And in general, soil, they say there's certain bacteria that basically influences your mood or gets the serotonin levels higher. So why not work with soil in general? Yeah, so that's just an idea.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think that part of the team building, just also one more idea. Very often people also get list of tasks and you send them to speak with the locals, for example. And what I did in my in last project, which I realized, we sent the people to green market and they had a like task to speak with the locals. And it was a project about intercultural learning, but it was also for them interesting because they, for example, find a woman which is selling the teas, you know, pick up from a like from the flowers from mountain. So I think this incorporating of, let's say, nature or learning about nature can be really part of any kind of activity. I also know that in another project, for example, the participants, which I haven't sent, like a part of the team building, receive gloves and plastic bags, and they kind of compete who collects most of the trash, because you may notice that now there are different initiatives like running and picking up trash. So yeah, I think there is a lot of different ways how to, especially in the team buildings, how to include it. And now we know that a lot of Marta will now guide through setting personal goals, because that's also very, I think, fundamental part of the project. So Marta.
So yeah, like Ilona said, part of activities always is setting personal goals, what you expect from activity, or in general, like it always goes on a personal level. And one of the activities that we did and exercises we used in Czech Republic was Tree of Values that Ilona did. So it was about just basically drawing a tree, and roots would represent your values, your roots, and the stem of the tree would mean your passions, like what makes you, I don't know, excited, what you like to do. And then the branches and leaves were like what you do for yourself. and for the community or with the community. And it was a nice way to gain a perspective on yourself in a way, what drives you, and and when you discuss it with other people, you see the connecting points as well. Like I think that was the idea. And then there was another activity that we actually didn't use, but I was planning to in Georgia, the earrings, which also serve in a similar way. It allows you to reflect on your personal values, interests, and qualities in specific time frame. And it can be used personally on your personal life, basically. And then each earring that trees have represents 7 years if you would do it for yourself. So you can actually observe how your values change or what evolves and what disappears in specific age. I don't know, there's like from 21 to 28 and then to 35, and then you actually can build on as well what you expect from future in a way. And this thing can also be used for organizations, but with less years, I would say every 2 years, because always organizations have their own goals. So you can reflect on where you are, like what you have achieved and what you would like to achieve. So where is the direction? So that's another interesting activity that can be done, like using nature inspiration, I would say. And another one I wanted to mention as well, not just trees, plants, it also animals. Animals is a great, how do you say, metaphor for realizing certain things. I'll mention one example of an exercise. For example, you could ask a personal question basically to yourself, like something that you want to solve. For example, how can I become a better public speaker? So that for example, could be your challenge. And then facilitator would lead you to a forest and you meet an animal. And for example, I would meet a tiger and imagine that, yeah, now what can I learn from that animal, from the qualities that animal has that I can apply to my problem? And basically I would realize that tiger would count always his steps. He would so basically be prepared, very well prepared before he catches the prey, right? So before he jumps, so I would learn from that in a simple terms that I need to be very well prepared about the topic, for example, and but just basically do it, like, because tigers are brave. So that's a simple example of how animals can be used as an inspiration for setting personal goals, for example. And I in general advise to look into nature-based learning methods, because there's a lot of these kind of inspirations from animal or plant world that basically makes a lot of sense, because we're technically part of nature ourselves. So, and some things really basically can help add a meaning or find a solution. Why not? So that's another creative way. Yeah, so that was about setting personal goals.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now the main one. So I will just share what we did, or what we could have done. Basically, there's always the content workshops. Basically, you address specific topic, and like Ilona said before, it doesn't have to be about environment, but maybe mental health, maybe inclusion. Like, there's always ways to incorporate, maybe not the whole thing, but partially you can. And one of the things that I think are very cool to do, let's say like that, is practical workshops where you learn something from the process, and actually either using nature materials or basically following certain journey. Like during a project in Czech Republic, we made beeswax wraps. So there are at least 20 people that now know how it's done in a simple way. And beeswax wraps are alternative packaging for plastic, for example. So why not teach something like that? Or, for example, at the venue in Slunjakov, the eco center, there was workshop set up for kids. That was not our workshop, but there was journey of grain becoming bread. So basically, I spoke with one of the teachers, and they explained that there are different cards on the floor, and kids pick one card, and these are the steps from where the grain is planted to basically it being grown, then it's being gathered, then it's brought to mill where it's being grinded, and then the end task would be that they would go to a kitchen area and they would mix the ingredients of bread. So why not provide this experiential experience, basically, that you actually, I think it makes some impact in a way that you learn the steps in this practical way. So yeah, another thing that we actually did during our project in Czech Republic was creative upcycling, and we used specifically single-use waste materials to create new things. And we divided groups like in 5, and they each got different material, single use, and it's not just forks and knives and plastic plates that were banned in the EU. There are a lot more items that are single use. So it was also creating awareness of things, but also this creativity, like I mentioned before, like people get very creative at some point. We had even performance with umbrellas. Like they didn't make anything practical, but they made a performance that was depicting some Picasso painting. Or like we had a group that worked with candy wrappers and coffee packaging, and they made these swimming things like there's in a photo. Like why not? Like you never know where the creativity brings you. And it doesn't always have to be that it's single use. It's just you can also bring some waste materials that people can pick from. But I noticed from experience that it works better when people have this one task that, yes, this is the specific material they have to work with. Maybe they feel confused at first, but then something clicks together and they start creating something, and usually the results are quite amazing and unpredictable. You never know. So, and also for content workshops, you could use, I don't know, like if you want to address in some ways some parts of sustainability, we created that board game that we also promote on the blog, where you can download it. And if you don't want to play the game altogether, you can also use some of the answers as discussion cards if you want to discuss certain topics in relation to your topic. Or so, and in the next slide I have more for the content. So another thing that we used and that was very interesting was creative problem solving, where we used biomimicry. That's basically mimicking how things work in nature and applying the qualities of a specific, it was an animal or an insect, to build strategies or solutions to a specific problem. There is an example in the background that's like, how can I become a better facilitator? And the animal that participants picked in groups was cow. So basically they had to come up with some idea, again, applying the qualities of the animal. How could they become a better facilitator? And they came up that they have to be well organized, patient, and also calm in stressful moments, like keep steady. But there were also other questions like, how can we encourage people to cycle more, or how we can encourage recycling in the community. The question would be always, how can I? And you take the qualities of a specific animal or insect, and you apply it to find a solution. So that's kind of creative problem solving. And we also used a kind of universal method, 6 Bono hats, that was presented by our colleague Misha. Basically that's also a creative way to look at why not try to solve a environmental issue or provide solutions using this kind of creative methods. So I think our group was developing solutions for how can they reduce organic waste. So all kind of interesting ideas came up with, because 6 Bono hats suggest 6 thinking ways, and it was a nice way to practice in general this creative problem solving. Then also creative writing, where Ilona is more expert, using nature images or prompts. Or one of the most amazing things that I know is describing something through 5 senses or one specific sense, like describing your morning using just smells, or describing your way to work using sounds. That's always giving you a different perspective on things, and I think you can always add something to the activity. Would you like to add something to that, Ilona, the creative writing?
I can just add that you can have to find also nice creative playbook which we created, where all these activities I mentioned, and I will share it in the chat, but also we will share it on the project blog. And it is just like really using everything what we have, so what we have around us, so we don't need to have to buy many new materials. Let's put it in this way.
Yeah. And the final one that I thought of that could be part of content workshops is we quite often build awareness. It's either mental health issues, inclusion, it could be media literacy, and why not kind of include environmental element in it too? So, for example, in Czech Republic, we did the photo journey, which was awareness building on building environmental awareness. So people were divided in 3 groups, and they got pictures of a journey that they went to, imaginary journey, but they were different. There were different things that they saw on their journey, and they didn't know yet that it was the same country. So it creates, at the end, when you put all the pictures together, it creates a bigger picture of what's going on, and maybe in a slightly shocking way creates an environmental awareness, but it could be also used in media literacy. I think it's one of the most common ways, using visual material to analyze what's going on. And also I remember Ilona used activity What's in Your Fridge. That was in a different project, but it was very nice to build awareness about specific topics, where your food comes from, who is producing it, you could even ask, what's the carbon footprint? How far did it travel? Did you want that avocado in your fridge? Do you know where it came from? Or like what the activity we used, like what do you like to consume the most? Like people mentioned all kind of things, like flying with planes, reading books that are paper, and then all these kind of things that actually we all have in common, but it kind of makes you more aware of things that we consume as a society. Yeah.
And I think that, for example, this point of the activity is not like stress the people out that now they should never consume anything, because also during the activity people were pointing out that they don't want to give up on something, and I think that's okay, because we still need to live, let's say. But I think it's about really building the awareness that maybe we can change some element of it, or we can for example, just include more seasonal fruits, because on other side, when we have these international projects, people were saying that in some countries it's natural. You eat what is in the markets. You don't eat what is in the supermarkets. You eat what is in the green bazaars. So it's also, it really depends also from where people were coming from and what is the common, let's say, habit around, like where you buy your stuff, like, yeah, what people are used to. So all these activities, I think, can also open very interesting discussion, like how people like have it. And I see that Marta also put it reflection, because that's, I think, very important part of any learning process. And again, doesn't really matter if we have a youth exchange about dance, youth exchange about environment, or youth exchange about youth participation. In any kind of activity, there should be included reflection. So Marta, please, some of your ideas.
So yeah, like to include the environment and ecological or nature elements. Yeah, reflection can be done as a simple walk in nature with the reflection trios with a task. Why not? Like there's always reflection after each day's activities. So why not make it a nice walk where you just share your insights and learning outcomes with the people that you trust, or basically build trust for that week. Also, we used it as one of main activities, but it can also be used as a reflection activity, the silent walk in nature. And participants had a task to bring an object that they either can feel something towards to, or basically they feel like bring the object that would represent yourself, and create a group mosaic. And here's a picture as well of the mosaic that we made in Georgia. And I must say that every day it would change. Actually, people would move parts, and that was interesting to observe. And as well, you can see where people feel like they are. Like some people are in the, maybe are more on the outside, and that's okay. But like it was interesting to observe how this kind of mosaic was constructed and that it was changing. Like that was a interesting way to approach this. And yeah, and people could share why they feel like exactly that object, and yeah, why not? And also making things from nature materials, like it was in Ilona's project that you could make masks or objects from gypsum, or basically you can also use clay. It has a very relaxing effect, and in general, doing something with your hands, especially touching some material that actually is easy to work with. And yeah, why not basically use something like that also as a part of reflection, like because you create something at the end. We have an image of a food there, so somebody got inspired to create that, and it's something that they actually can take home, And another reflection way we had like drawing the mood or making a collage. So we had activity in Georgia where people were asked to draw the mood, and there is a picture of sun and water, and I think a person had a very good time at the project. So and basically, yeah, I think that's what is interpreted by the other person in the group that got that paper, that things were working out. So yeah, I think these are just some creative methods.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marta. So there were some like activities which we were like so far sharing. And also there is like, how say Marta already, like walk in the nature or like creative writing activities. And I will again connect it with this, put in the group and also in the blog, this creative writing materials which we like created. But I think it can be also just simple that you take the group out and you sit in nature and you have this circle of sharing, for example, like a closing or opening of every day, or a closing or opening of youth activity. Marta, you would like to add something to these activities?
Yeah, with the evaluation, like I think we did very nice creative writing activity to basically close the main activity. And I think basically it was nice how you planned it, that there was free writing and associations to warm up, and then we did metaphors where we used basically either nature elements or elements that we addressed during the activity. And the best part was dialoguing, I think, because it was really good for reflecting on the whole learning experience as a participant or as facilitator. Because it went like this activity was, and then the person B would be in your head, I guess, writing yes, but, and then you go on. Like, it was a very nice way to kind of do your own evaluation on your learning outcomes. So yeah, like that's what I wanted to add. Yeah. And then, like, apart from all these main activities, content, workshops, there's also site visits. I think in every project there's at least one, some sort of educational, how do you say it, excursion, right? So to see, so like in Georgia, we went to parks, and that was a very nice experience. There was one with the musicians park, and then the other one with all kinds of trees, right? Dendrology park. So that was very nice to also learn about the nature of the venue. Well, it was not far away, so you learn more about the country, but through that lens. And we also, in Czech Republic, we had the like amazing opportunity to stay in an ecological center. So, but even if we wouldn't be staying there, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go and visit it to see how it works, right? So, and I also thought of like if the venue is not an ecological center, like it was in our case, there could be also organized visits, and not just to eco center. Maybe there's some local animal sanctuary or like recycling plants that the region is recycling some sort of waste there, that creates awareness, of course. Or maybe community garden, just to see how people maintain common land, actually, right? So just to see how that works. Or eco farm or business. And I wanted to add also like having guest speakers, but also speak with people how they actually run these things, because it's a great exclusive opportunity to actually ask someone like, how does this work? So why not? So I think there should be more of these. And I also added like having guest speakers that represent occupations connected to nature or environment. Well, we had a representative of the eco center, so we could learn about how they run this place and why it uses 5 times less energy for heating, or what is their, how do they do that? Or it could be, for example, I don't know, meeting somebody like ornithologist. So somebody excited about birds, it's amazing. You gain a new perspective on things. It's actually very nice to meet people that are excited about what they do, right? So like, why not use that so you can ask your own questions? So yeah, that was my suggestion here with the site visits.
Yeah, definitely. You can also, for example, we were also thinking to invite, for example, some green influencers. It didn't happen in our project, but also again to point out that you have, for example, activity about communication, and you can include like people which do communicate with different groups, and they also include this environmental element, because green influencers, like they manage now social media, and they have a very good experiences with like preparing their content, reacting, or different reactions to their content. The same, it's like the visit of community garden. Yeah, it is about gardening, but because there is the community, you can really learn a lot when talking with the people, how they talk to each other, how they make the decisions. So it can give always like very different perspective on also on the elements of the project which we try to tackle, or how they are solving conflicts. if we speak about like a conflict management, how the small communities like deal with the conflict when they like have, let's say, common goal. The same like often I also do projects focused on social entrepreneurship and businesses. And it's really like, there is so many topics to cover, which would maybe not on the first, I would say, science say that it's about environment. It can be topics about marketing, business, like how selling your products. And after you can still bring this another sustainable like perspective. Yeah. And of course, like if we cannot go out, we can also stay sometimes like in. And what I really like, and Marta will after add more, is also to use the group like a resource. Because when we work with the people, many people have very other experiences. They know a lot. They read the books, watch movies, they talk to the people. So I think it's very nice that people suggest. And also you can have like easy, like some wall of sharing when people share some ideas or some projects from their countries or some tips. And Marta can maybe speak about the group challenge, which was very unsuccessful in our project.
Yeah, like I think somebody suggested that we could pick up 3 pieces of trash from the beach every day when we were in Georgia. And somehow, I don't know why it didn't work. Maybe because we learned that in Georgia, every even if you have separate bins for something, it all goes to the same place in any case. I think that was the case why it didn't work. But it's always good to have a group challenge. Why not? It's like,
yeah. And I think it's again also about the reflection, because you also see how the group works. So there is this excitement. Yes, we will pick up these 3 pieces of trash. And one day pass, another day pass, and suddenly nobody is picking up. And maybe after 5 days, everybody even forgets about it, which opens the discussion also about like how we change our approaches, how we change your behavior, what we really need. It is the inner motivation. It is the fact that, I don't know, there should be some award at the end for the people which pick up the most trash. So I think also this different group challenges can be after very interesting for reflection and discussion how the groups and people work.
yeah.
And and we have also here some movie nights, of course, or like any kind of activities which people can do, like, let's say, besides the main program. Marta, you would like to add something?
No, it's just, I think, movie nights, you can always put documentaries, like radical or less radical documentaries, or even animation movies that are actually directly showing the effects of, I don't know, certain environmental issues. Like recent animation movie Flow showed the floods, that the world flooded in this animation movie. And also there is a good old Wall-E, which was a futuristic animation movie about the future when the earth was not inhabitable anymore. Like, if we remember, it was just waste, and there was this little engine dude that was collecting it in some certain way. But yeah, like, why not put something like that? Especially animation movies, they work nicely. They're light to watch in some ways, right? And why not add that? Or documentaries as well. Yeah, I think that would be more or less what I tried to say.
Great. So when we speak about this project, just to maybe sum it up, we have the way to focus on the project elements, like the venues and the practicalities. And after, we have also the ways how we can focus on, let's say, on the program part. And I think it's nice to discuss it with the partners in the process of preparation of the project, with the participants, and see what elements to combine and how. I added in the group chat the link to the creative playbook, because we mentioned several times the activities from it, and it will be also on the blog. And I think it's maybe the last thing and after we will finish, it's also very, I think, important to have an understanding of the local surroundings. Because when you do projects in other countries or you come to another countries, I think it's very also maybe good to make some research before or speak with the hosting organization, because also not everything is also possible. And we should be, I think, also realistic about it. Like a practical example, if you come to the Macedonian capital Skopje and you would say, okay, I arrive by train, that would be great, but there is unfortunately, really unfortunately, there is almost no train connection with any other, like big cities in other countries. So to tell people, okay, take the train would be kind of, pointless advice because there is no train. So it's, I think, also really important to understand like the local kind of, let's say, realities, situations. But at the same time, I think I would also be maybe sometimes a bit challenging, and I will close it by the last example. When we spoke about the diet and meals, I have also groups which really refuse to be vegetarian. Like there is no judgment in it. Basically, the meat should be part of the meals. And for them is very important. Like for other countries, the bread needs to be on the table and is very important. But I think that you can suggest it and you can discuss it, why it is so important, or if it's possible to make change, for example, just for 4 to 5 days and see what happened. So I would also add that all to these elements, it's very good to have a local understanding of the situation and also to really always clearly discuss it with the participants and partners. So there is no like some misunderstanding or let's say expectations which cannot be, for example, fulfilled. Or or maybe like people would not really understand why we did it. So that would be, I will now